Welcome to this special episode on Income Declaration Scheme 2016. The government is keen to stem the generation of black money at source through the use of technology and PAN disclosures for high value transactions. But what about the black money already in circulation? Last year's income disclosure scheme sought to legitimize the black money stashed overseas. This year, the scheme targets domestic income that has remained unreported and untaxed. This is an opportunity to keep out trouble by coming clean, because the scheme is the last warning, in fact last opportunity. A similar scheme is not expected to be launched very soon by the government. The government is doing its bit to create awareness on the income disclosure scheme running up to September 30th this year. The scheme, which could be a little tricky because it involves a lot of nuances, lot of small things which could be not understood by the common man. To discuss the final aspect of the scheme, we have distinguished panelists here, and of course we'll start with Mr. Ajay Vora, who is a seasoned lawyer and a designated senior advocate in Supreme Court, and of course the two partners from Vash Associates, Mr. Rupesh Jain and Rohit Jain. Let me start with Mr. Vora. Sir, as I mentioned earlier that this scheme is trying to legitimize the black money in a way. So is it fair on the part of honest taxpayers, like let's say me and the common man, that we have been paying the tax and all of a sudden the government is trying to legitimize the black money?
In fact, I would include myself along with you as one of the honest taxpayers. But I would think that, you see, what we need to look at is the practical scenario. The practical scenario is India is a country of about 3.4 crores taxpayers, as opposed to our population of about 125 or 126 crores. Right. Having said that, there is a very small tax base that we have in the country. We also need to accept as a fact that many of us are not willing to pay our taxes. Correct. So having said that, what you need to look at is, if the government is to come out with this scheme, and this is almost close to 20 years after the first VDIS 97, it is, according to me, an acceptance of the fact that the taxman cannot reach any and every person to unearth the black money or unearth undisclosed income. Correct. So that's one admission. The second is the fact that if you look at the larger national interest, and you will pit this against the interest of the honest taxpayer, I would think that in the larger national interest, you must come out with such a scheme, and India is ripe at the moment for such a scheme, so that the money which is stashed away comes into the national mainstream. Sure. You have, countries with very highly sophisticated and developed tax systems, somebody like the United States of America, where people fear the revenue service. They have come out with an amnesty scheme. Okay. The UK has come out with a similar amnesty scheme. Okay. So I don't think that in the national interest we should sacrifice, such a scheme in the interest of the honest taxpayers.
Okay. So just to give an overview about the whole scheme, sir, I mean, let me come to you, Mr. Rohit Jain, is that what is the, if you can give us a brief overview of the income declaration scheme 2016, what is it all about and how this will try to kind of address all the issues amongst the taxpayer and also for the government.
Okay, just to give a brief overview, now this scheme basically has been introduced under the Finance Act as per Chapter 9 of the Finance Act, consisting of certain sections like 181 to 199. Right. Broadly, the contours of the scheme is that any resident or a non-resident who wants to declare his undisclosed income or an undisclosed asset, okay, he can simply fill a form, which is a form number 1, okay, wherein he can disclose his undisclosed income or an undisclosed asset, okay, and on which he has to pay a tax of 45%, which is a flat tax comprising of the basic tax and the surcharge and the cess, including the penalty of 25% on the tax, which is 7.5%. Okay. Now that form has to be filed. The scheme is open from 1st June. And it is till 30th of September. Sure. So till 30th of September you can file that form 1. Okay. Thereafter, once you file a form, you get a certificate or an acknowledgement from the CIT, which is in form 2, which you get in 15 days from the end of the month in which you file this form 1.
In between this period?
After having filed this form, okay, 30th September you can file the form. Thereafter, within 15 days, he has to give a certificate of acknowledgement.
Okay.
Thereafter, you will have to pay the taxes. Now, initially it was proposed that the taxes have to be paid by 30th of November.
Okay.
Now, what they have done is they have recently amended the law to provide that now these taxes can be paid in 3 installments.
Okay.
So, the first installment will have to be paid in November, and which is 25% of the tax. Another installment of 25% has to be paid by 31st of March 2017. And the balance 30% has to balance 50% has to be paid by 30th of September 2017. So this is how broadly the scheme is. And once you have paid the taxes, then you have to intimate to the commissioner in forms 3 that look, I have paid the taxes, and thereafter he has to give us an acknowledgement, which is a certificate of the the declaration being accepted. So this is how broadly the scheme works.
Okay, so basically the whole cycle is for 1 year, I mean from September 2016.
Yeah.
So that brings me to this next question. What all is required to be declared in a form of declaration? Whether the source of income is also to be declared or not under the scheme. Is it?
Now this is little important. The form, if you see form number 1, it has 2 pages of form 1 and there is an annexure to form 1. Basically, some of the basic details are required to be filled. For example, the particular's name, address, PAN, assessment year. Now, these are little bit details. Then you have to give the details of the assets. If you are supposedly you are declaring in the form of an undisclosed asset, so you have to give the description of the asset. For example, gold. You have to tell what is the carats, what are the specifications of the gold for
various categories.
For various categories. For example, immovable asset. Then you have to give the date of acquisition, the other particulars regarding those acquisition.
Okay.
You have to give the fair market value of the asset.
Okay.
Now, what is important over here is, in fact, we were discussing it internally also. Only the form number 1 appears to be simple, but one has to be very careful and while filling up the form. I'll give you an example to explain this. You see, there may be multiple transactions. Say, for example, I started with an undisclosed cash of say 1 crore initially. Say I had this 2000 I had this cash from which I purchased a immovable property. Now the immovable property is subsequently sold. Immovable property I purchased say from 1 crore, I sold it at 10 crores.
Okay.
I again after some time I again sold that property say for 20 crores, and that 20 crores is now lying with me in the form of say partly in cash, partly in jewelry and partly in the form of another asset. Now the simple way to fill up this form is, I just disclose the last known assets which are available with me, which is cash, jewelry and the immovable property.
Sure.
But then if you were to simply declare this, you are exposing those earlier transactions because you have not declared those earlier transactions in this form.
Oh, I see.
So what is important and critical is to fill the form in a way that all the transactions which are actually leading to the last known asset should be declared.
You see, the point that is coming out is, if you want to take advantage of your disclosure subsequently,
Sure.
then the disclosure has to be meticulous.
Correct.
If, let us say, 3 years down the road, there is a search at your premises and they find the transaction of 2000.
Okay.
Now, they may say that this is undisclosed unless you fall back on the disclosure scheme and say, look, I disclosed it in the 2016 scheme. I disclosed this 1 crore in 2000. So therefore, thereafter one has built on it and all the transactions are disclosed.
Okay. So that brings me to the next question, probably as a layman, as a common taxpayer. Let me put this question to you, Mr. Rupesh Jain, is how would undisclosed income would be calculated as we were discussing? So how would that be calculated? I mean, let's say during this period, as Mr. Vora and Mr. Jain, your colleague, actually pointed out, that during this period, I bought the property for 1 crore and then 10 crore and then 20 crore. So how the process will go on?
See, insofar as cash is concerned, of course, no evaluation is required. But where the undisclosed income is in the form of an asset, there you would have to get it valued from a registered valuer. And the fair market value as on the date of the inception of the scheme, which is 1st of June 2016, would have to be taken into consideration. So whatever asset you may have, immovable property, all that will have to be, and there are elaborate valuation rules which have been specified by the Central Board of Direct Taxes for different kind of assets. For example, in case of shares, in case the shares are listed, what you have to take into consideration is the market value of the share, the average market value of the share as on 1st of June 2016. But where in case of other assets you may not have, it's not a marketable commodity, there you will have to get a registered valuer report.
Okay.
And he will value, and on that basis you will value that asset and disclose your income. Now, there could be situations where the asset may have been acquired partly out of disclosed income and partly out of undisclosed income. There also the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, the circular which CBD has come out with, they have specified the method by which you will calculate the amount on which the tax has to be paid. So to give you an example, let's say in 12-13 you had 200 of income which was disclosed.
Okay.
And next year 13-14 you had let's say 300 of income. So this total income is 500.
500, yes.
Now that 300 is not disclosed. Now that 500 has been invested in an asset, and the value of that asset on 1st of June 2016 is let's say 1500.
Okay.
So in this case, what you will have to do is that out of 1500, you will have to reduce proportionate value of the disclosed amount. So 1500, so formula would be 1500, which is the fair market value, less 1500 into 200, which is what has been disclosed, over 500. 500 was the total amount.
The original one.
Oh yeah, original
Yes.
amount. So you will come out what is the fair market value in relation to the amount which has been disclosed. So and that you will reduce from 1500. So in the formula which I have given, 1500 minus 1500 into 200 over 300. So that would be, you will reduce 1000, and 500 is the amount on which tax will have to be paid.
Okay. Let me put it in a more specific way. For example, the stamp duty. What will happen to the when you pay stamp duty? How the cost of immovable property, which may be more than the fair market value, how will that be calculated? And just to add to it, whether the deduction will be allowed on the expenditure or not. I mean, how the mechanism will work.
You see, in Income Tax Act, we have section 50, section C, which says that in relation to immovable property in the form of land and building, you have to take into consideration the stamp duty value. Where the stated consideration is less than stamp duty value, the stamp duty value is taken into consideration. Where the stated consideration is more than the stamp duty value, you have to take into consideration the stated consideration because it is more. But now this scheme provides that you have to take the fair market value. So you don't have to go by the stamp duty value. So the registered valuer, the value put by the registered valuer in relation to the property, and he would take into consideration various factors. What is the going rate? He would talk to brokers, etc., and what is the market rate which is going, which could be less than the stamp duty value. So in case it is, even if it is less than stamp duty value, you can take that amount into consideration because that is the fair market value as per the registered valuer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So that leeway has been provided in the scheme. So you don't have to go by the stamp duty value, whereas it is more than the fair market value. That is one. And you will not get deduction for any expenditure, etc., which you may have incurred in relation to that.
Oh,
so you will have to pay tax with reference to the gross amount.
Okay.
Yes.
In the gross amount, it will not be allowed. The deduction will not be allowed.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now coming to the kind of the basic thing about how the scheme will benefit. I mean, if you can kind of elaborate on that what according to you are the schemes in the scheme which will benefit, which are beneficial.
Now, it's an interesting question because if you open the website of the Income Tax Department,
Correct.
a pop-up will emerge. It says that undisclosed income and asset is a time bomb. So basically, what they are trying to tell you is that it's a time bomb
With a photograph of a bomb. Yeah.
So they are telling you it's a time bomb. It's diffuse it. So the most important benefit of this, this scheme is the peace of mind. If you want peace of mind, it's better. If you have any undisclosed income and an asset, it's better to disclose it, close it, pay taxes, and close the matter. That's the first important benefit. The other benefits are, they are giving you immunity from wealth tax. You don't have to pay wealth tax. So, say for example,
so wealth tax is exempted.
You don't have to pay any wealth tax. So effectively in that 45% of tax value calculate, that element of benefit of wealth tax which you are saving over the time is also needs to be taken into consideration.
Okay.
Then the Benami Transactions Act. Now if you will see, recently they have come out with the new legislation also, where they seeking to amend the Benami legislation, which which will enable them to confiscate your immovable properties, Benami property. So they are saying that we will not, you will get immunity from the Benami Transactions Act, provided the declarant, transfers the property from the Benami holder in his own name by 30th of September 2017. So that's a window which they are giving. So you are giving that
But
immunity.
that is then bringing the whole asset in your name. Let's say I had this Benami property. I'm transferring the asset in my name.
Correct.
So, but then I have to pay tax on that, right?
Yes.
So it's not exempted in that.
So you will not be charged under the Benami transaction.
No, but you're not paying tax on the full value. You are paying only on the undisclosed income. It is accepted that you had financed that Benami property.
Sure.
To the extent there was undisclosed money is invested in the Benami property is what you have to disclose under this scheme.
Okay.
Not the entire value.
Oh, I see.
Not the entire value.
And then you don't, there is no penalty and prosecution. They are giving you penalty. In fact, they are charging you as part of that 45% rate, but there is no prosecution which will follow. Then they have also clarified that there will be complete secrecy of the, the declaration which you make. It will not be shared. In fact, they have also gone to the extent of saying that, look, if you were to, buyer of a property, were to declare the property, we will not even, question the seller.
Oh, I
which
see.
is something of great, some kind of comfort which they have given, because in case of foreign declarations, that was one of the, deterrent, because if I were to disclose the foreign asset and there was some transaction with someone else, some non-resident or a resident, then the deterrent was that he was not able to declare it. But here they have said that we are not going to, ask this, the other seller. Then the other important point is that you can now pay the tax in installments. There is no interest which is being charged. So, and the other important point is, if you were to declare the fair market value of an asset, that actually becomes your cost for the purpose of calculation your capital gain subsequently. That benefit also has been given. Now, what's the most important thing? Look at the other way around. What is the effect if you were not to disclose it? What will follow? Now, what is important is, in fact, we would request Mr. Vora to further enlighten on this 197. There is a specific section 197 which has been introduced. Now, what they are saying is, under the normal provisions of the Income Tax Act, they cannot go beyond 6 years.
Okay.
So, after the 6-year period, your asset, even if it is undisclosed, becomes a disclosed as kind of an asset.
Okay.
Because they cannot, look after, question you on that asset. Now, what they are saying is under 197 is that even if you don't declare your undisclosed income or an asset under the scheme, and subsequently the tax authorities come to know about of your undisclosed income or an asset, then it will be deemed to be income or the asset of the year in which they issue the notice to you.
Okay.
So in a way they are taking away that 6 years window from you, and then they can even tax you for a 2000 transaction or 95 transaction, anything, any of those transactions.
Okay.
So therefore you have to keep that into mind in order to decide whether or not to avail this particular scheme and make a declaration under this scheme.
I think I would put it on a much broader perspective. It is ultimately balancing the outflow of money.
Okay.
45% versus the peace of mind. You are actually purchasing peace of mind. And I think those times have gone when you think the taxman may not be at your door.
Okay.
Today with this
Technology.
increasing technology, yes. You see there is so much exchange of information. We've seen instances of seamless exchange of information with the US authorities under the FACTA. Now India is making available information, the US is equally making available information. Banks today are making available information seamlessly to government.
Sure.
So the government is actually sitting on a mine of information, which they will, of course, over time, analyze and get into. And who knows, you may have a knock at the door sooner than what you anticipated.
But
It
just
was there in the newspapers that they would be sending notices to around 9 lakh.
Correct. I read, yes.
Because they have mined data which they have got from insurance companies, mutual funds, from banks, and on that basis, in relation to high value transactions, etc., they have the
In fact, I was yesterday on a flight and talking to a very senior official in the government, and he was telling me that we searched somebody, and that somebody was not filing any returns with impunity because he believed the taxman will never come after him.
Correct.
And he had regular bank accounts. He said he was buying property, he was making payment to DDA, to Noida, and so on. Not realizing that we could at some stage come to his doorstep.
Okay.
So I think people need to be more pragmatic, more practical.
But since we discussed all the small contours of the entire scheme, right? But at the same time, what we keep reading in newspapers that this kind of scheme, or let's say that the black money thing, which we have been, it has not been that successful. I mean, only few crores have come to India or something of that sort. I'm just talking about the overseas funds. I mean, I'm not talking about the black money which is in circulation.
Scheme has not taken off at the moment.
So are you like convinced with the scheme whether it will be successful or not?
Basically, again, it's a question of mindset. 45% seems too high. But as Rohit explained, if you are caught,
Sure.
the 30% tax plus add the interest for the several years, add the penalty, it will amount to much more than 45%.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. Somebody came to me the other day who sold a property for 60 crores
Okay.
and would have bought it for maybe less than a crore or whatever.
Wow.
Now the properties have gone up to that value. So we calculated his tax and we said on a 20% basis, you may roughly have to shell out about 12 crores.
Okay.
Now he was aghast. He says that, look, it takes more than a lifetime to earn 12 crores and you are telling me to pay 12 crores.
But he has already earned 60 crores.
No, but he's not looking at that. He's looking at the absolute outflow and he's not looking at the fact that his tax rate is effectively below 20%.
Absolutely.
Nowhere in the world will you find this
Correct.
unless you go to a tax haven.
Yeah.
So we have to change our mindset. So the success of this scheme is again based on public perception. It will depend on again weighing, the monies that will go out in the sense of 45% and the benefit that you get. Most people assume that there's 1 in a million chance that the taxman will come to my house only.
Okay.
So that I think is today a myth.
I mean, that is a point where I am little kind of uncomfortable that I have been kind of, let's say, paying taxes and all of a sudden somebody, as you said, that 1 crore and 60 crore and he has not been paying tax, the other guy. I mean, he has been given this window to go and disclose and make it everything white. I mean, it's... But anyway, so let's come to the CBDT clarification in which Rohit was also, mentioning about 197, section 197. So do you think that it is in line with the IT Act, I mean, which is the clarification which has been kind of given by the CBDT?
See, basically, the old Black Money Act, which was for foreign assets and foreign income, that is an act in itself and that is open-ended. There is no limitation for the number of years that the revenue can go backwards.
Sure.
This is really not an act in that sense. It is part of the Finance Act of 2016. It's called the Income Declaration Scheme of 2016. This has not amended the Income Tax Act, but it holds out the threat that if subsequently the tax department is to discover or uncover any undisclosed asset or undisclosed income, they can tax it in the year in which they issue a notice under the provisions of the Income Tax Act. So they will give a go-by to the 6-year limitation for which you can reopen past assessments. Now, frankly, this will be a legal question whether the scheme can override the 6 years provided in the Income Tax Act, because ultimately the scheme seems to suggest that the assessment will be done under the provisions of the Income Tax Act itself.
Sure.
Now, this will be a point that will be tested in courts subsequently, that whether by virtue of the scheme can you override the limitation of 6 years.
Okay.
I would think as it stands today, it will be difficult for the government to say that we are armed with the income disclosure scheme of 2016 and we can go back beyond the 6-year period.
Okay.
Though the government's understanding very clearly coming out from the circular says
Yes.
that they can go beyond 6 years.
And interestingly, I think like we discussed, they have given two situations. One where you make no disclosure, they can go back any number of years. But if you make a disclosure which is rejected for bona fide reasons, suppose you have not paid tax or you've received a notice, you've been served with a notice but it slipped your mind that you've been served a notice, yet you made a declaration. Now in that case they say we will stick to the 6-year period.
Okay.
Now clearly there is no rationale for making this kind of distinction except holding out the threat.
Correct.
I would think this is more holding out a threat and holding a gun to your temple to say you better come and disclose.
So that is another thing, and one more thing about a lot of noise that was made around that if you declare your assets in the current year, then you will be charged that the tax rate will be 34%.
Right.
And effectively, if you calculate from 45%, then you will be saving 11%. That is another thing. So what are your views on that, Mr. Rupesh?
I think that is misinformation because if you have to declare correct income. So if you are declaring income which relates to an earlier year in the current year, so first of all, your declaration of the current year is wrong.
Okay.
And you can be prosecuted for that. It's not a correct declaration. Number two, you do not get any immunity in the sense that if tomorrow the income tax department finds out that an amount which was put into an earlier year has not been disclosed in the earlier year, you have not availed the benefit of the scheme and is declared in the subsequent year. So, the subsequent year you have paid the tax, right?
Okay.
But that will not debar from the income tax department from initiating proceedings for the earlier year in which that income accrued to you.
Okay.
Or it was there in your bank account. So, you don't get any immunity. So, you will end up paying tax in relation to the earlier year.
It'll be a
because
double jeopardy.
It's a double jeopardy.
Double jeopardy.
So you have already paid tax on your own in the current year,
Sure.
and there is no immunity in relation to the earlier year. So
I
they
think
can
even the
proceed
tax
against the earlier
officer
year.
would be alerted to, check
Okay.
where you are disclosing abnormally high income in the current year. He would also, scrutinize your return that suddenly you are possessed of much more income than what you disclosed in the past.
But this 30%, 31%, this tax rate which newspapers have reported, I mean, that is the
That is
point which,
different.
yeah, so that is what I was trying to
Okay,
kind of,
then
yeah.
that's a different issue. So
Okay.
there are two issues here.
Okay.
One is whether income paid in an earlier year you can declare in the current year and get away by paying lower tax, because in the current year the tax is 34%. But as I said, that would not happen. So you will end up paying tax of the current year 34% and also end up paying tax of the earlier year, which is later on discovered by the income tax department, and there is no immunity. And you will also pay interest and penalty in relation to the earlier year's income because it was not declared in the earlier year and under the scheme. Okay, so that is one part. The other is, the confusion which got created because of a clarification which was issued by the government saying that they will not inquire into your sources of income or the source of tax. When you pay the tax, they will not inquire into the source of the tax.
Okay.
So people thought that maybe then they can pay the tax out of their undisclosed income and the government will not look into the source of that.
Okay.
Which would mean effectively bringing the tax rate to 31%. That is what was there in the newspapers also.
Okay.
Which the government has now clarified that that is not the case. So if you have disclosed income of 100 under the scheme,
Sure.
and on that 45% tax is to be paid. So 45 if you're paying out of that undisclosed
Okay.
sources.
That's 100.
So no, not on top. You see, 100 is disclosed, right?
Okay, disclosed.
45 is out of undisclosed.
So out of that 100 cash
100?
that you have, you are paying the 45.
45, okay.
But your income becomes
No, so your income will become 145. It cannot be that you pay 45 out of undisclosed income, and because of that question which was there, that whether the government will go into the source of the payment of tax, and the government said no, then nobody would look into that 45 out
Okay.
of which you have paid the tax.
Oh, I
But that
see.
is not the
Okay,
case.
okay.
So the government will look into that also. So if you paid 45 out of undisclosed income which you have not declared, so nothing bars the government from bringing that 45 to tax.
So there are a lot
You
of
will
kind
not
of loopholes where this government can actually take advantage of.
So you will have to declare
I think
145.
that was always the intent.
That was always the
that
case.
was always the intent. This was misinterpreted in the press and in some sections to say that since the government is saying we are not looking at the source of tax, so you deposit undisclosed income of 100 into your bank. In addition, deposit 45 in the bank in the form of cash, out of which you pay the tax. You are depositing 145, paying tax of 45, 100 is retained in the bank, but you pay tax only on 100. That was what people were interpreting or misinterpreting.
So it becomes a wrong declaration
Yeah.
actually, because your undisclosed income is 145, but what you are disclosing only 100.
Right.
In fact, there was a lot of enthusiasm when this newspaper report came in that effective rate is only 31%.
yes.
Then people were like they were feeling at it 31%, and the today's rate is 34% if you
yes.
take into
Which is
account.
less than-
If you look at this, immediately when this appeared in the press saying the effective rate is 31, there were many inquiries.
Okay.
So 31 versus 45, people are sitting on the fence only to weigh the cash outflow.
Okay.
So there are people willing to disclose at 31,
Correct.
but 45 is a dampener.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Rohit. Is what Mr. Vora earlier said that when he was flying with one of the kind of huge potential taxpayer, so he was not filing taxes. So what, according to you, what kind of people should be declaring or taking benefit? I mean, is it only those who are not filing, or there's another category also who can kind of take advantage of the scheme and get benefited?
In fact, there are many categories who can avail of this benefit of this scheme. One would be there may be people who may not have deliberately filed the returns. Due to ignorance they may not have filed. For example, non-resident expatriates who may be working over here. So it may have slipped their mind to file the return of income in India. So it's a chance, because there may be some undisclosed, there must be some income. For example, bank interest. They may have bank deposit from which they may have earned interest, which is taxable in India, which they have slipped to cover it in their income tax return. They can file the return of income in India by filing this declaration. Then there you would have heard a lot of noise about those SEBI coming out with lot of information about certain stocks which they call it as penny stocks.
Penny stocks, yes.
So there are In fact, there are lot of discussion, like notices are coming, and Mr. Voral also said that people are receiving the notices. In fact, many inquiries have come to us also, that where the SEBI has identified certain stocks which have actually resulted in huge gains to certain people, the beneficiaries you may call it.
Okay.
So in fact, they should introspect and now decide whether they want to get into the litigation of that issue, or they want to close the matter and declare that income. Then share capital, as we all know,
Yes.
lot of companies are non-existent companies wherein there is a lot of introduction of share capital.
Yes.
They may also think of declaring the amount and then closing the matter. So this is opportunity for all those people who are actually there is undisclosed income. For example, jewelry. Lot of families have jewelries. They purchase
Yes.
jewelry. Ladies purchase jewelry.
Yeah.
It is never disclosed. In fact, it is quite, you will be shocked to know. In fact, the rate of jewelry has come down.
Yes.
So what the scheme considered is only the fair market value as on 1st June 2016.
Okay.
Now I was looking at the rates of the silver. The silver rate had gone up to 55,000 or 58,000.
Okay.
And as on 1st June 2016, it is somewhere around 36,000.
Okay.
So in fact, if you were to declare silver,
Then it will be on
the
36,000.
effective
Yes.
rate will come down.
Yes.
So you may have purchased it at a higher price.
Yes.
But you should declare it. So
Correct.
jewelry, and now particularly considering the fact that ITR forms today now requires every person whose income is more than 50 lakhs to declare all his assets.
Yes.
So the jewelry has to be declared.
Correct.
If you don't declare it, it remains the undisclosed asset. So it is important for all these people to introspect and avail of the benefits of this.
I think, Rohit, you should also add the non-resident Indians. You said non-resident expats, but non-resident Indians who have income here.
Correct.
You see, many have rental income, income from deposits and so on.
Sure.
Out of inadvertence, you may not be filing your tax return here, thinking that since you are a foreign citizen, foreign resident, you are not obliged to, file a return. For them also, it's a chance
This
to
is-
come clean. Yes.
Sir, one point where which Rohit just mentioned about the penny stocks and the share capital and all that, you have kind of argued in so many cases as in Supreme Court and various other tribunals. I would like to kind of get more idea or more, if you can elaborate on the whole penny stock issue vis-a-vis this income declaration scheme.
You see, as Rohit pointed out on this penny stock, there is doubt about the abnormal rise in the valuation of the stock.
Correct.
So whether these are actual capital gains that you earned, or these are fictional in the sense that it is based on price rigging of the stock. Now the SEBI is certainly pointing a finger at the promoters and the investors, saying that this is only manipulation of the share price. This is not actual gains that have been earned in the market. Now in that view of the matter, if the person who has earned the capital gains is not to make a disclosure, and he is already been issued a notice by SEBI, he has a long fight on hand. He will have to prove that he made the investment was genuinely made in a stock, that stock actually escalated in price many times over, and that what he has actually received on sale of the shares in the market is the real money and real capital gain. Okay. So on capital gains he pays 20%, or long-term gains, if these are listed stocks, there is no tax on that capital gain. But opposed to this, there is a 45% tax under this scheme.
Okay.
Now, if he does not opt for the scheme and eventually it is taxed as his income, now in that case, he would pay tax at 33% on the undisclosed income. He would pay interest. He would have to suffer penalty for concealment of income. Add to that is the litigation with SEBI. And you may also have the SEBI invoking provisions of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So PMLA action will also come in. So you have to weigh again the point that whether you save 45% today and eventually litigate the matter, which may or may not go in your favor. So a peace of mind today versus a long drawn litigation. So I think eventually everyone has to take their call based on these parameters. It's a dilemma certainly.
In fact, they have all the information. If you go to the SEBI site or wherever, they have, because PAN-based information is there.
Yes.
All these transactions have taken place on the stock exchange. So the entire list of the persons who have actually got the income on through these penny stocks, PAN-based information is there for each and every assessee with the department.
And I would just add to this is that the courts today are also placing a rigorous burden of proof on the assessee. So the courts would require the assessee to discharge, meticulously the burden of proving the identity of the subscriber, proving the creditworthiness of the subscriber, the genuineness of the transaction.
Yes.
So it was not. It is not as if the court would accept your statement at face value. You need to lead credible and substantive evidence to prove all these things and to discharge your burden.
Okay.
Or which is becoming today a tough call.
Okay. Now coming back to the earlier discussion when you said that the timeline is from September 2016 to 2017 and the taxes can be paid in installment. If you can throw a little bit more light on it, that how will it work and the mechanism of this, because you briefly mentioned earlier, but for the viewers and probably the possible taxpayers under the scheme.
In fact, this is, you can treat it as some kind of a concession from the department, because the earlier scheme which was you were required to pay the entire taxes by 30th of November.
Right.
Now, there were difficulties which were pointed out to the department. For example, in case of an immovable property. Now, you would have invested, say, in an immovable property. You may be residing in that immovable property, not intending to transfer that immovable property.
Sure.
Now, today the scheme requires that as of the fair market value as on 1st June 2016, you have to end up paying taxes of 45%. So, the department has also recognized the difficulty in arranging for those funds, because 45% on a notional, on an amount which is actually you have not realized. So, you may have invested 1 crores, the present value of the property may be 10 crores. So, you have to pay 4.5 crores out of your own pocket. You don't intend to sell that property. So, what they have said is they have actually amended the the rules itself to provide that now you pay the taxes in 3 installments, and the good part is there is no interest which is being charged.
This is almost like a sweetener.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to popularize the whole scheme.
In fact, the press release which had come out earlier, they said that this would apply only in case of transactions where you have property, immovable property.
Okay.
But now the notification which has come, it doesn't talk about any such distinction. So it will apply to all cases.
Everyone.
So whether
And what if only part payment of the due taxes is made? I mean, if you talk about the section 187,
no, then it would be an invalid declaration. It would not be accepted.
it will not be accepted.
yes.
So, I mean, if you can.
You go back to the Income Tax Act, they would.
No, so if up to September 2017, you've not paid 100% of the tax.
Okay.
And you paid only part of the tax. So to that extent, the declaration will become invalid.
And you will not get any immunity under that scheme.
Okay.
So then the downside is that you made a declaration to the department, the department is seized of that information, and they will use that information against you in your income tax proceedings.
So under the same topic, let's say I as a who declared, and later on under the scheme, later on I want to enhance the value or reduce the value. So is it possible under the scheme, or?
Now, surprisingly, they have come out with a clarification on this also. Initially, it was thought that you can file only one declaration. Now, recently they have come out with an FAQ, which say that you can revise the declaration so long as you are increasing the amount to be disclosed. So, you can file a revised declaration, increasing the amount of the income to be disclosed herein. And it's not specified how many times you can file a revised declaration. So till 30th September 2016, you can file a revised declaration. Yes,
2016 September. I mean, so that is the kind of.
That is the outer limit for filing the declaration.
I mean, for enhancing or reducing, whatever.
No, reducing is not permitted.
Not permitted. Okay. So only enhancement is okay. So now when we talk about the various categories, we talked about who have jewelry, who have kind of immovable. So is there any category which is also barred from this scheme? I mean, any category?
In fact, there are few categories which are justifiably barred. For example, someone who is being prosecuted under the Prevention of Corruption Act and some of the other acts. So these categories barred. Two more categories which are basically barred is, one is the person who has already received a notice of a scrutiny. For example, under section 143(2), 153A, 153. These are all scrutiny assessment notices. If you have received those notices, then you are barred from making a declaration. The third category is a person who has already been searched or a survey has taken place at his premises. In that situation, even though he may not have received the notice till the start of the scheme, but he is also barred from making a declaration so long as the time limit for issuance and service of notice has not expired.
Okay.
So those categories in fact have been barred. In fact, that leads to a larger question. In fact, the other panelists can also, enlighten us whether it is really justified to, bar those categories. Whether, for example, a person who has just received a scrutiny notice. Now, the department may not have come to know about the information about a particular undisclosed income or an asset.
Sure.
So, just because he has received a notice, he has been barred.
Okay.
So, is that justified?
So,
I would think that, if you want to make this scheme successful, you should open it across the board.
It should be inclusive.
Yes, it should be inclusive. There is no reason to keep out people who've just been served with a notice.
Yeah.
I would even go one step further. Suppose he received a notice, the department has detected concealment. Now, from the department's point of view, you need to see that whether you need to go through the process of making an assessment, then the taxpayer filing an appeal and the matter being litigated in the courts and the money is being held up in litigation, or should you give him a chance to even disclose what is there in an ongoing assessment. And I would think that if the idea is to bring monies into the mainstream, monies which were hitherto not disclosed, then I think welcome people with open arms. Let give them this last opportunity.
Sure.
Let them come forward and disclose whatever income they need to disclose, despite the fact that they may have received a notice.
Sure. Mr. Rupesh, let me come to one of the issues which is clarified actually. It refers to the FMV being taken as cost of acquisition of asset. I mean, if you can elaborate on that portion, that how.
Yeah, what has been clarified is that the fair market value of the property on which you are being levied the tax under the scheme,
Sure.
that would be considered to be a cost of acquisition for purposes of computing capital gains at a later date. Like later date when you sell the property, so capital gains would rise.
Okay.
So for that you require the cost of acquisition. So this fair market value would be considered to be the cost of acquisition, which you are able to reduce. But what the clarification also provides is that your period of holding would start from the date on which this fair market value is determined, which is for 1st of June 2016.
Sure.
Now the issue which arises is whether if you take that date as the start of the period of holding and you were to sell the asset, let's say in the next 2 years, whether it would be a short term because gain or long term gain, because for long term the period of holding has to be 3 years.
Sure.
Though in actuality you maybe have been holding this asset from let's say 2000, year 2000. But now if you were to sell it in 2018 and the circular says that the period of holding would start from the date of the FMV, which is 1/6/2016, then short term capital gain would rise. Sure. But our reading is that you cannot not take into consideration the entire period of holding. So the period of holding, which has been referred to in the circular as the starting date on which the FMV is determined, is I think only for the purpose of indexation and
Sure.
not for anything more.
Okay.
So for the purpose of indexation, you have to take that as the starting date.
Sure.
But not that for the purpose of calculation, the period of holding as to long term and short term, you have to take that date as the date of the holding of the asset.
And I think the only caveat I would like to add is then you should be able to demonstrate that you held it from 2000.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you should have evidence to say that you held it from 2000.
And you see, this circular, this is in one way beneficial when it says that you can take into consideration the cost of acquisition for purposes of FMV as a cost of acquisition for capital gains, because there is no amendment in the Income Tax Act. There is no corresponding amendment in the Income Tax Act. It is only by way of this circular.
Sure.
But to the extent it says that holding period would commence from the date of the determination of FMV, it is not, it is not in favor of the assessees. And so this can be read to the extent beneficial to the assessee, you rely on this. To the extent it is not beneficial to the assessee, you rely on the provisions of the Income Tax Act and say the circular is not binding.
But Rupesh, I would just that even if you have no amendment in the Act on first principles, once you've declared the FME and paid tax, that should become your cost.
That is what exactly I was trying to ask you is CBT has been kind of issuing clarifications one after another, which is not corresponding to any amendment in the Act. So are these tenable? Are this binding?
This right to issue circular or this power to issue circular is flowing from the scheme itself.
Okay.
These are certainly
So
binding.
these are binding.
Yes, these are binding, certainly binding.
So I'm afraid that we have not much time left, but at the same time, I would request all of you to have the closing remark about the scheme and how the things, if you can.
I think just to put it in perspective, VDIS 97 came almost 20 years ago, and at that stage also there was a litigation by the honest taxpayers in the Supreme Court, which made the government file an affidavit in the Supreme Court that we are not looking at or contemplating another voluntary disclosure scheme in the near future.
Sure.
Now, 20 years have since passed. We have not added to our taxpayer base. The collection of taxes is minuscule compared to the black money that is circulating in the economy.
Sure.
Now, I will only say that this needs to be explained to the courts and the public at large that this is something in national interest. And that is why the rate has been kept at 45%, that this is not really a discount to those errant taxpayers who have not paid their taxes. Now, this is one good opportunity for people to come clean, and I would think that people should, in today's time, value peace of mind more than the money that they'll have to shell out to buy that elusive contentment.
Sure.
Yeah.
What would,
Yeah, I would agree. Yes, people should come forward. I think it's a very beneficial scheme and it gives you peace of mind. And the data which the government now has, earlier you could get away with this thought that I'll not never get caught. But now, you can't really have that kind of comfort. The kind of data which the government has, which they are going to mine, and they are really going to get after you. And they have made it very clear in their discussions with the public that in case the declarations are not made and they have the information, they will really go after you.
In fact, I have few suggestions if the government can implement it. First of all, the comparison is being made between the foreign asset scheme and this scheme. Now, the reason for that scheme not being very successful was that it was not properly publicized by the department itself, as vis-a-vis this scheme which is being publicized. Now, one of the major deterrent which with the feedback which is coming up is that 45% which Mr. Vora and sir also has elaborated upon. Now, but basically the problem is not of 45% of rate, the problem is more of a fair market value as on 1st June 2016 being taken. Now, what alternatively what department can or the tax department can think of doing is, you can some proportion of the fair market value being treated for the purpose of declaration. So just to give an example, say 10 crores of a property as on 1st June 2016, you say that 50% of that value we will treat it as for the purpose of declaration. Now, the benefit of it is you definitely will get a lower amount of taxes today, but that property comes into the mainstream. Ultimately, you are not giving him any advantage because you are ultimately that lower fair market value will become his cost of asset.
correct.
And whenever he is going to sell that asset, that will again come into the mainstream. So, without treating it as a more of a tax gardening scheme, in fact, if some kind of adjustments of this fair market value is permitted within the scheme, and the parliament is in session, they can make the amendments also. If some kind of an amendment can be made, then maybe this scheme becomes more and more
popular.
successful.
Yeah.
In case of jewelry, for example, they can for example 6-year period, after 6 years period window is there. So they can say that instead of taking 1st June 2016, you will have an option to for example 2010 value can be taken. Because in any case that 2000 prior to 2010 they cannot go after those people.
Sure.
So if with
the other thing, just give me 2 more minutes. One is those people who've been kept out, if notices have been issued or if search has been carried out. I think one suggestion to government would be to make it open to all. That will certainly generate greater response. And I would want to end by just saying that this dehoard the scheme. In the US, why did the amnesty scheme become popular? The amnesty scheme became popular because there is a huge deterrent if you don't pay the tax.
Correct.
The internal revenue gets after you and it may result to cancellation of your residency or citizenship.
Yes.
Here people are not paying taxes because there is no deterrent. And the government goes after those who are diligently filing their return year after year.
Yes.
So I would think that the government should now change mindset, place some amount of trust on people who are filing their returns and try and get after those who are not on the tax net hitherto.
Correct.
So that focus I think needs to change. We need to create this deterrent in our system so that people voluntarily pay tax henceforth. So that I think is important from a government's perspective and from India's point of view.
Yeah. Well, this is one issue which can be discussed even in Parliament and over the years after year. I mean, there's no limit of time, but we are afraid that much time we have right now. And you just heard the experts that just buy your peace of mind by disclosing your undeclared asset under the scheme. And that is what and as there's a popular Hindi film dialogue, कानून के हाथ बहुत लंबे हैं, and with the technology that the government is going to use, it is getting longer and longer. So use this opportunity to declare undisclosed assets and earnings, and buy that peace of mind. Thank you for watching.